Welcome to Inside CBN Now, where we talk about policies of the Central Bank of Nigeria that affects our daily life. Whether you are a business owner, a student, or just curious about the economy, we are here to explain the numbers and decisions in a clear and simple way. I am Abiodun Adelowore. Access to funding is a major challenge for many businesses. Without development banks providing loans for farming, manufacturing, and small enterprises, growth slows and jobs are lost. Development banks channel capital into critical sectors, supporting industrial expansion and entrepreneurship, which drives the nation's economy forward. The CBN guides and monitors these banks to ensure funds reach the right people. Today, we explore the future of development banks. My guest is Mr. Muhammad Ahmed Ilyasu, an economist. Thanks for joining the discussion.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir, for welcoming me. And it's a great pleasure to be on your program today.
How is the CBN redefining the role of development banks in Nigeria's economic growth?
The CBN as the let's say alpha and omega, that is the bank of banks, actually. Currently the CBN is redefining the role by shifting them from primarily being channels for direct interventions to becoming, wholesale or apex financial. This redefinition, like I have mentioned, takes place, using different strategies. And I think the most prominent ones currently are three, and the first of them is by ensuring financial system stability. Because the CBN, as the bank of banks, the apex, the last resort. So, as we, the platform of our policy making, you can call it, a central planning. That is, everything comes from the center and everything ends up at the center. And because of that, the CBN is tasked with financial stability. So this redefinition, first and foremost, ensures that there has to be a financial stability, because without financial stability, there will not be any redefinition. The such stability comes from ensuring those development banks meet the prudential and corporate governance standards to safeguard the financial system. I think any citizen that is curious about the activities of the nation might have encountered how the CBN is, making headlines regarding the, that is minimum reserve ratio, minimum capital ratio for banks. And, all this is to ensure that there is financial prudence in the system. There has to be a stability, because at the end of the day, without such stability, nothing else would happen. Secondly, there is another strategy that is wholesale funding model. And this wholesale funding model is usually takes place by encouraging those development banks to move away from retail lending. Because retail lending is, that's normally what commercial banks do. Retail lending, when people that are looking for loans come to them, they will give them money, and normally that's what commercial banks do. So by trying to encourage development banks to move away from those such retail lending and to move towards providing wholesale long-term funds and partial credit guarantees to participating financial institutions like commercial and microfinance bank. That is, in a nutshell, that is to say, leave those small activities to commercial banks and focus your attention and your strength, that is, to bigger fishes in the economy, which in this case would be the commercial and microfinance bank. This is wholesale in a nutshell, and this allows for risk sharing and expanding the reach of development finance. Because as a matter of fact, those commercial banks, are more familiar, they are more fluent with individual agents in the economy. That is with, with the sub-level, that is the lower levels, the individual businesses, the individual agents. And since they are more fluent with them, you should allow them to handle them. While you, on the other hand, as development bank, you should focus your attention on the commercial banks. And in this case, there would be much clarity and the development finance would be much more effective. And then the third one is called, targeted sectoral support. Normally, using development banks to drive finance into critical underserved sectors like agriculture, infrastructure, and micro, small, and medium enterprises, that is SMEs, by aligning with national economic diversification goals. Uh, this basically is, like focusing attention. Let's say in Nigeria, we have a lot of sectors that need critical attention, sectors like infrastructure, agriculture, power, mining, among others. Uh, so this targeted sectoral support, the CVN, can platform the development banks, that is to enable them to focus their attention on sectoral reforms. For example, let's say the Bank of Agriculture, the Bank of Industry, uh, the CBN can just platform those institutions. That is, the Bank of Agriculture should focus mainly on agriculture, the Bank of Industry on revitalizing and reviving our industries. So these three methods are some of the key strategies using which the CBN is trying to, redefine the role of development finance in Nigeria.
Thank you. What reforms can the CBN introduce to improve efficiency in development finance institutions?
When talking about the term reform as I understand it, that is, whenever you hear the term reform, then basically something needs to be done better. Actually, there is a need for better efficiency. There is need for better efficacy, among others. So some of the reforms that the CBN can introduce to improve such efficiency in development finance, there is what is called mandate rationalization. Its development finance institution. Like I have mentioned, currently we have the Bank of Industry, the Bank of Agriculture. Let's focus our attention on these two. The CBN can come up with a reform that clearly define the role of these two institutions. That is where they start and where they end, their limits, the bracket within which they operate, so that there won't be overlap. Because currently there is a lot of overlap. You see, you will encounter, because some may say, if you look at it from general point of view, that is, agriculture is also part of the industry, because it is, as an agrarian economy, it is the agricultural output that actually services the industry. So in that case, you say agriculture is also concerned with industry. And in attending to the needs of agriculture, you might, without a clear definition of role or function, a Bank of Agriculture may overlap into industry. Likewise, a Bank of Industry may overlap into the activities of agriculture. So basically, the CBN can do well to clearly define their mandate, which is what this mandate rationalization is all about. And secondly, there is a need for performance-based funding. In Nigeria, we usually do budgeting. That is, at the end of every fiscal year, the government, there is a Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning. And, the officers in charge of those activities will come up with what needs to be included in that budget. And at the end of the day, the final document will be drafted. And whatever came off, like whatever has been included as the need for that sector will just be included in that budget. So I think it's high time. It's high time that Nigeria move away from such budgeting, because currently what we have is, according to a budget of so year, so amount has been allocated to the Bank of Agriculture, so amount has been allocated to the Bank of Industry. That is regardless of whether that institution is doing well or not, regardless of whether that institution is meeting its performance standard.
How can the CBN ensure better coordination between development banks and commercial banks?
Coordination, of course, yeah. So basically, this is like about the robustness of the financial ecosystem. And I think the most critical one is by developing better risk sharing mechanisms. That is by establishing standardized CBN backed partial credit guarantee schemes for commercial banks that lend DFI, that is Development Finance Institution funds. And I think this risk sharing mechanism will reduce the risk of perception for commercial banks, making them more willing to lend to high impact, long gestation projects. Because basically, we operate in capitalism, actually. So almost every commercial bank is out there to make profit. And most of the times, making profit, borders along the lines of risk assessment. The CBN has to come up with risk sharing mechanisms that will make the commercial banks more confident in the ecosystem. That is the confidence to give out loans, the confidence to invest in long-term projects, knowing that at the end of the day, their money will come back, and not only their money, but also the profit.
Thank you. How can the CBN strengthen the link between development banks and Nigeria's industrial policy?
This is a part where the composition becomes much more strategic and measurable. Because for the CBN to strengthen the link between development banks and Nigeria's industrial policy, there has to be strategic alignment platforms in place. And of course, methods have to be adopted in order to ensure, the strength, in order to ensure that these links are where they are absent, to ensure that they are established, and where they are established already, to ensure that they become more strong. For example, policy alignment mandates. The CBN should impose a regulatory requirements that DFI lending strategies are explicitly derived from and mapped to the government's Industrial Revolution Plan and National Development Plan. That is to say, Nigeria cannot afford a situation whereby the development banks are targeting one thing while the industrial policy is targeting another. In that way, there will not be like any strong link between them. And this is where this policy alignment mandates comes into the picture. That is, if the development banks are moving this way, then the industrial policy should also move this way and not that way. And such alignment will come in handy in ensuring that the link has become more strong. And likewise, sectoral funding targets. That is, if the development bank is focusing its attention to, let's say, agriculture, then the Nigeria's industrial policy should also focus on agriculture. Likewise, if the development banks are focusing their attention to, let's say, mining, then the industrial policy should also focus its attention to mining. That is, no matter what, they have to be on the same board, and they have to go hand in hand, because that is the only way they can achieve the targeted impact. Without that, it cannot, Nigeria cannot abort such, policy misalignment. So basically, that is the critical stakeholders in the development banks and the critical stakeholders making the Nigeria's policies, Nigeria's industrial policy. They have to sit down and, become on the same board. They have to understand each other's perspectives and ideas. They have to share vision And of course, they have to share the same work rate so that none of them would be left behind, because Nigeria cannot afford that. Yes, so this is what I think regarding how the CBN can, strengthen the link uh, between development and development banks and industrial policy.
What measures can the CBN adopt to make development banks more transparent?
If the people know what is happening, they are more likely to trust. And for investors, very recently, and Nigeria is quite adamant on securing, investment, and that is especially from foreign investors. Our governors are spending billions of naira, traveling abroad in order to attract FDI, that is foreign direct investment. And those investors are very smart. They are very prudent and wise. So there is absolutely no way they are throwing their money into our economy if they don't know the actual state of our economy. So the CBN are the measures that the CBN can adopt to make development banks more transparent, include, that is adopting the public impact reporting. That is by mandating those development banks to publish annual, independently audited impact reports in addition to financial statements. These reports must clearly detail the number of jobs created, production volumes enhanced, how recruitments are made in those, institutions, you know, how, like, what are the measures against corruption in those organizations, and that is and other non-financial metrics achieved, disaggregated by region and sector. Very recently, the Center for Fiscal Transparency and Public Integrity published 2025 Transparency Index, and very few institutions actually score the desired, marks. So the CBN can, like, can ensure that transparency measures like TECRA, that is transparency, accountability, and corruption risk assessment, that is actually favorable. And how? That is by allowing the office of the auditor general to do its job. That is by giving it the power it needs to audit those institutions. That is to highlight to the public what exactly is going on in the institution. If it is good, then they get reinforced. If it is bad, then they get held accountable. That is to boost public trust and to attract the FDI that the Nigeria is very adamant on. Likewise, there has to be something along the line beneficiary disclosure. That is instituting a policy for reasonable disclosure of the ultimate beneficiaries of large development loans and intervention funds, while protecting proprietary business information. And this should include the criteria for selection and the loan performance status.
It's time for Now Streetwise, where we go into the streets to find out what Nigerians think about the CBN and its responsibilities.
Do you know any development banks in Nigeria?
I think I'm aware about Bank of Industry. Normally, I think there has to be they're involved in, like, maybe giving out loans for maybe agricultural purposes and all of that. I'm not sure if they actually do that, except maybe you have a personal relationship with any of their officials. I think that's it.
Yes, of course. I know Bank of Agriculture and Bank of Industry. I've not have access to collect any reason to collect loan from industry because I am more into agriculture. But despite that, I've not able to collect loan from Bank of Agriculture. But the only thing I know that the percentage of interest is a bit lower in Bank of Agriculture than any other one.
Yeah, the banks I know about Bank of Industry. Yes, they work there. They do. And they do give loans, but it is on certain conditions. And the conditions is that you must have a clean record, which is credit and bureau record, for you to apply loan from them.
I can speak of Bank of Industry. Well,
I've been able to see the activities and how they give loan, they disburse loan, and people comment about the way they disburse the loan. And actually, according to the people who have secured the loan, said the interest rate is very low and it has enhanced their business.
Have you ever applied for loans or intervention funds from any of these banks?
The only one I would try to apply for is a Bank of Agriculture. But, well, no, maybe Nigeria system is about paper. I don't know why you give the paper, they just put it somewhere. At the end of the day, no reply, no nothing again. But the only one I know, personally, I have the agenda for applying for it is the Bank of Agriculture.
No, I will tell them to take from their own banks because it's safer and it is more easier. Because if you collect loan, they will be able to have access to retrieve back their money when you are paying back. It's always easy. But all these development banks, but it's not advisable for them to take such loans from them. So I would advise anybody to just take loans from your own personal bank, which is the bank that you're banking from. Just take loans from them. It's better that way.
I've not request for loan from any of these banks, but with what I've heard from most of these people that they have secured loan from those banks, I think it's advisable if you have a good business that you want to embark on, you can go there and seek for loan.
Something you don't even believe in, you will not even want to even attempt the criteria, because some of that actually, my belief system on this is you can actually get these things if you actually have somebody on the inside. So since I don't have somebody on the inside, I don't even go for the process from the beginning.
Do you think the loans have been appropriate for your business?
Even though it is easier, there are some people that are there that make it more cumbersome in getting whatever you want to get easily. It will be easier for those officers who are working there, but for outsider, it won't be so easy like that. If you don't know anybody that will push your paper, that's what I see. That's why it's not easy for ordinary person moving on the road to just say, I want to collect loan. They will not even see the right person to speak with at times. Those are the things when you get to the office.
You must go through certain criterias in getting those loans. And those criterias is when you have to get a form, you have to fill them. You must be an employee, because if you are not an employee, you won't be given such loans. You must either be an employee or you must be a businessman. You get such loans.
I'm not privileged to meet those who have secured loan for me to be able to understand what they went through or they passed through the criteria. I don't know, but I believe at least if someone like some of the people that are able to acquire those loans, I believe once you give it a try.
In Nigeria, a man no man. If you know somebody, we know somebody, then it can be easy for you. But outside that, except the government start being transparent with their way of dealing things and come out transparent, then I think things can work. But outside that, my belief system still remains the same.
Welcome back from Now Streetwise. What are your thoughts on Nigerians from Now Streetwise?
Basically, what I understand, they are a bit pessimistic regarding the entire process of securing a loan and paying it back. That is in effect with the Nigerian development banks, so development finance institutions. They are not competent. They literally don't trust them. This is what I sense from those short interviews.
What is the possible long-term vision of CBN for development finance in Nigeria for the next decade?
The way I see it, the way I understand it, is that those development finance institutions have to secure the confidence of the public, just like the commercial banks do. And the only way to achieve that, like we discussed earlier, is by ensuring there is transparency and accountability in those institutions. Because people normally don't trust what they don't know. Like the gentleman in one of your interviews mentioned, it is better to secure a loan from the bank you are banking with. Like it is not like basically he's just telling you he trusts the bank he knows and he does not trust the ones he does not know. So why don't our people know those development finance institutions? Why don't they know? So basically, it is the fault of those institutions. Like there has to be a massive public awareness on the activities of those development finance institutions. That's number one. Number two, there has to be transparency. Information has to be available for the consumption of the public, civil society, organizations, researchers, independent oversight. There has to be regular audits, that is to hold those informations accountable, to interpret them for public consumption. And likewise, there have to be an effective market outreach. Because like I have mentioned, uh, almost every Nigerian knows where to secure a loan if he is looking for a loan in a commercial bank. But now, if you stop a Nigerian on the street and say, if you want to secure a loan from the Bank of Industry, how do you go with it? They will struggle to answer because they don't know. Why don't they know? If Bank of Industry wishes to give out loans to the public, how do they do it? Why do they do it? Who are their target people? Which sector are they targeting? Which market are they targeting? Which agents? Which businesses? So this has to be swiftly, clearly, and effectively, because without that, the people will never trust them. So from what I understand, the vision of the CBN in the next decade has to be, that is with regards to development finance institutions, that there has to be a harmonious relationship between, those development finance institutions and commercial banks. Or like I have mentioned, since the people appear to have have a lot more trust in the commercial banks, then and then it is a relationship that the CBN can leverage. For example, now the Bank of Industry can partner with, let's say, Access Bank or Jai's Bank to like say, okay, we have this program in which we will give loans to 10,000 Nigerians. And we would like to partner with Jai's Bank to administer those loans, give them the loans. Because basically commercial banks have much more effective system of that is getting those loans back. They have a more effective system of doing that. So why not partner with them? Because like I have mentioned, in order to establish a harmonious relationship between commercial bank and development bank, there has to be a clear mandate. What are the limitations of the commercial banks? What are the limitations of the development bank? So allow the commercial banks to handle the individual agents and the businesses. So if you wish to reach out to them via those commercial banks by establishing partnerships. That will save a lot of money and that will save a lot of effort. And of course, so within the vision of the CBN, I will suggest establishing partnerships with commercial banks. Reach out to the public through the commercial banks. Get back your loans through the commercial banks. Likewise, roll out a massive public awareness using modern technology. Most Nigerian youth are online. Enough of them are online. Leverage that. And of course, in the event that such partnership does not appear feasible, then a massive reach out and market outreach has to be put in place. Transparency, accountability, integrity, make information available to the public. That is the only way. That is the only way the entire ecosystem would become robust and people will be equipped with information, with financial backing in order to grow the economy and subsequently take Nigeria to the desired destination. Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining the discussion.
Pleasure is absolutely mine.
My guest is Mr. Muhammad Ahmed Ilyasu, and we've been discussing future of development banks. Before we come to the end of today's program, here's a quiz for you. What measures can the CBN adopt to make development banks more transparent? What measures can the CBN adopt to make development banks more transparent? Send your answers starting with Inside CBN Now to the WhatsApp number 0809 0809-682-2595. 0809-682-2595. The first correct answer gets a prize. Thanks for being part of the program today. Until next time, I am Abiodun Adelowore.